A surreal moment after spending the last 3 days in hospital, the president attempting to portray strength by walking up the south portico staircase, then turning for the camera, moving his mask and saluting the military helicopter as it again took flight. He then entered the White House unmasked, where he spent time near a group of people during what appeared to be the production of a number of videos later posted to Twitter.
I just left Walter Reed Medical Center, and it's really something very special. The doctors, the nurses, the first responders, and I learned so much about coronavirus. And one thing that's for certain, don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment. We have the best medicines, all developed recently, and you're going to beat it.
The president has received experimental antiviral therapies and continues to be administered a course of remdesivir and the steroid dexamethasone, which provides lung support, but also lists mood changes and trouble sleeping as among its side effects, as he seeks now to portray his infection as inevitable as a result of his leadership responsibilities in the country. As the list of infected persons associated with the White House continues to grow, these images of the press briefing room being decontaminated a testament to the growing concern, despite the downplaying from this president.
We're going to be out front. As your leader, I had to do that. I knew there's danger to it, but I had to do it. I stood out front. I led. Nobody that's a leader would not do what I did. And I know there's a risk, there's a danger, but that's okay. And now I'm better, and maybe I'm immune. I don't know. But don't let it dominate your lives. Get out there, be careful. We have the best medicines in the world, and it all happened very shortly, and they're all getting approved, and the vaccines are coming momentarily.
But his doctors say he's not in the clear yet, and have warned that days 7 to 10 in the course of this infection are the most important in high-risk individuals like the president.
We all remain cautiously optimistic and on guard because we're in a bit of uncharted territory when it comes to a patient that received the therapies he has so early in the course. So we're looking to this weekend. If we can get through to Monday with him remaining the same or improving, better yet, then we will all take that final deep sigh relief. But as I said, 24/7 world-class medical care surrounding him down there. We're not going to miss anything that we would have caught up here.
The doctor pointedly refusing to answer questions about when the president first became infected and whether his lungs have been damaged, citing patient-doctor confidentiality.
Again, HIPAA kind of precludes me from going into too much depth in things that I'm not at liberty or doesn't wish to be discussed. At some future point, maybe, but today, sorry. I think that's it.
1 month out from Election Day, his Democratic rival, who was stretched into a commanding national lead in the latest polls, had this message.
I was glad to see the president speaking and recording videos over the weekend. Now that he's busy tweeting campaign messages, I would ask him to do this. Listen to the scientists. Support masks. Support a mask mandates nationwide. Require masks in every federal building and facility and interstate travel. Urge every governor and mayor to do the same. We know it saves lives.
And with the president feeling better, the urgency to get back onto the campaign trail will be something to watch closely. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
And Sherwin joining us live from New York right now. Sherwin, that moment, when the president removed his mask and then walked into the White House without his mask, that has shocked people around the world. How is it playing out in the United States?
A lot of people, Francis, in the United States saying sure as well, because that literally was our reaction. I mean, it was almost like the president was removing that mask as a display of some sort of victory to his supporters. What even stunned us further was that he turned around after that salute at Marine One as it took off from the South Lawn after dropping him off, and then turned around and walked into the White House, where we could see from that wide-angled shot that there were people in his immediate vicinity. There was some sort of interaction. It now turns out that they were shooting a campaign-style video, but the president never, ever putting his mask back on. And we have subsequently seen recorded video of that address he made to the camera that was recorded by other people, presumably wearing masks. But remember, this is the people's house, as we refer to it in that piece, where a lot of people work. And I can tell you the Wall Street Journal also reporting yesterday that as the virus spread among the people closest to the president, he asked one of his advisors not to disclose the results of his positive test. They quote this anonymous source, quote, "Don't tell anyone," is what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. So alluding here to a possible cover-up as to when exactly the president tested positive, and then telling a close advisor not to share that information. Listen to Dr. Roger Serholt. He's a pulmonary and critical care physician out in California. He weighed in on what we saw play out at the White House last night.
Generally speaking, the patient becomes not contagious 10 days after the beginning of the onset of symptoms, so long as they don't have symptoms of a fever within those 24 hours. So clearly he's still in the contagious period. And so if he's going to be around people, he needs to be cognizant of that and wear a mask. In the next few days, for him doing well, continuing to do well, I think that's probably the likely scenario. But there's always a chance that things could get worse, in which case he'd be taken back to Walter Reed.
I will just read you a statement we've received from the physician to the president, Dr. Sean Conley. He, of course, has been updating the media regularly as to the president's progress. He writes, "I released the following information with the permission of President Donald Trump. This morning, the president's teams of physicians met with him in the residence. He had a restful first night at home, and today he reports no symptoms. Vital signs and physical exam remain stable with an ambulatory oxygen saturation level of 95 to 97%. Overall, he continues to do extremely well. I will provide updates as we know more." So really sort of push back at some of the reporting, given those images of him removing his mask and walking into the White House, given that this is already an epicenter of the outbreak in Washington, D.C.
And like you say, there are reports of a possible cover-up, an incredible cover-up here, because people were working with the president, people were all around him. Do we know when the president tested positive for the first time and what the possible progression of the virus might be?
The short answer is no, we don't know exactly, because initially we suspected that it was around Wednesday last week when Hope Hicks initially was quarantining on a flight back from Minnesota, a campaign event with the president, so we assumed it could have been late Wednesday. Thursday morning, the doctor on Saturday outside Walter Reed talked about a 72-hour period of diagnosis, which would have put the first positive test at around Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. They've since pushed back, said it was 3 days ago. So there's been a lot of confusion as to when the president tested positive the first time. This has been a direct question put to his doctor, who yesterday basically said he doesn't want to look back but wants to look forward. So a lot of obfuscation as to when exactly the president learned about his positive test, and that would inform his decisions thereafter, right? Did he continue to travel while he was positive or not? Did he fly to New Jersey on that campaign event on Thursday afternoon knowing that he was positive? The official word from the White House is he only tested positive after his return from that New Jersey event. But of course, given this White House trust deficit to date, it's very difficult to really pin down exactly when this happened. And the big concern here is in terms of contact tracing. Do we know who came into contact with the president, any members of his staff, once they had tested positive? We are now learning today that members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Washington, D.C., essentially the top brass of the military, all of them are now self-quarantining bar one, because they too have come into contact with someone that has tested positive. And what we are seeing since this diagnosis early Friday morning, when the president announced that he was positive, Francis, is we've seen a drip effect in terms of the number of infected people growing, and that continues to this day. New infections being revealed associated with the White House on an almost daily basis.
Well, that didn't deter the president. He's been tweeting up a storm, including that he is looking forward to the next debate. So that'll be on the 15th of October in Florida. Is the Joe Biden camp at all concerned about the implications of meeting Trump face-to-face so soon after his diagnosis?
Well, I'll tell you this, the Presidential Debate Commission, this independent body that basically runs all the presidential debates, the three presidential ones, including the vice presidential debate that will take place tomorrow in Salt Lake City in Utah. I can tell you what they're doing tomorrow. They're actually going to install plexiglass between the Vice President Mike Pence and Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris out of an abundance of caution, because you will remember that there was a lot of speculation because the president arrived late at his debate against Joe Biden in Cleveland, Ohio last week. He did not receive a COVID test on site. So speculation was rife that he might already have been infected by that Tuesday. And this was a question put to Joe Biden in an NBC town hall they had with him last night as to whether he was concerned about his safety, having been in such close proximity to the president at that time. This is what Joe Biden had to say.
I've been fastidious about the social distancing. I've been fastidious about wearing a mask when I'm not socially distanced, and even then remaining socially distanced. And so we never got closer than you and I are right now, as well as when Melania came up on the stage, she smiled and waved. I waved to her, but it was the same distance. Was a little disconcerting to look out and see that his whole section, no one had masks on. While my wife was sitting further down, had a mask on, the people with us had masks on. I didn't quite get that. I would hope that the president, having gone through what he went through, and I'm glad he seems to be coming along pretty well, would communicate the right lesson to the American people. Masks matter. These masks, they matter. It matters. It saves lives. It prevents the spread of the disease. Social distancing. Instead of talking about the only thing I heard was one of the tweets saying that, don't be so concerned about all this, essentially. There's a lot to be concerned about. 210,000 people have died.
We do understand, Francis, that the debaters will be even further apart than they were the last time. Remember, there was social distancing employed when the former vice president met with President Donald Trump in that first debate. We understand that the VP debate tomorrow that distance will be doubled. And in terms of the president's tweets, there are two polls that are very instructive as to why we are seeing this sort of erratic number of tweets from the president. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal and a Washington Post poll came out giving Joe Biden a 14-point lead nationally. CNN has a new poll out today that extends that lead to 16 points nationally, which is indicative of the post-debate bump given President Donald Trump's performance in that Cleveland event last Tuesday.
Sherwin, before we let you go, you said that taking off the mask was almost like a victory symbol to his fan base. And it's often discussed, Donald Trump's fan base has been pretty secure despite his behavior. This is pretty outrageous. Somebody put on Twitter a previous tweet of his years ago saying that somebody was being very irresponsible coming from West Africa with Ebola and moving around. He's doing the same thing. What's the speculation amongst experts? Could this move the needle at all? People have lost loved ones. Will they finally be critical of a president they once supported?
I think the needle is moving. Those, we always talk about the slither of support in the middle, those independent voters that were sort of waiting till the last minute to decide. And we've seen Joe Biden's lead in a number of polls now since that debate almost double. So I think that's indicative, A, of the president's performance in that debate, but also his positive test in this virus that really speaks to, his messaging that he got completely wrong here. I mean, even today he's talking about how he understood the risk, but he felt that as a leader he needed to go out there without a mask and without the social distancing at his campaign events, which just doesn't speak to the science or the facts. So in terms of the needle moving, I don't think that really shifts his support base. That they've been very consistent since his election in 2016. But in terms of the independent voters, I think you're now seeing them breaking for Biden, and that is, of course, a big concern here for the president, because if he needed to do anything in that first debate, Francis, it was to shift the trajectory. He has been trailing Joe Biden for the longest time, maybe 5 points, 6 points, 8 points. That lead now for Biden has doubled, and I think that spells a great deal of concern, certainly within the Trump campaign. And let me also tell you this. The Trump campaign had hoped that once the president left Walter Reed, that he would recalibrate his message around masks. What he showed us last night was that his position is not going to change, and that he's probably not going to wear a mask moving forward.
Wow, implications for a very interesting election that is looming, and Sherwin Bryce-Pease there for us, and of course covering the run-up blow by blow for you at home.